Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'll ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen.
Clerk Spencer, would you call the roll, please?
Pezza.
Here.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Ram.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
York.
Here.
Kipskin. Absent. Healy. Absent. Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
Very good. We have a quorum. I'd like to ask Chief Ruth and Interim Deputy Chief Kvitin and Interim Commander Tannehill to meet me over at the podium to my right. Welcome to you gentlemen and to your fellow police officers. It's my pleasure to administer the oaths to promote these two gentlemen tonight. It means a lot to me. I changed my travel plans so that instead of coming back tomorrow, I could be back this evening and be part of this ceremony. So if I mess up a little bit, I did take the red eye, 2 hours sleep, and we're ready to go. As I've mentioned in other promotional ceremonies when I swore in a police officer about a month ago, Elmhurst does objectively have one of the finest police departments in the state of Illinois. And these two gentlemen are being promoted because they're recognized as being some of the finest officers and some of the best leaders of our department. These promotions are a very big deal, and I'm glad that we're all here to be part of it. And I know it means a lot to these guys to lose the interim part of the title that they've held for so long. Some of us get past that and some don't. So, first, and I'm going to, I think I'll do it separately, Sergeant Bob Tannehill, who was an accountant for 3 years, come on up, left the exciting field of accounting to become a police officer and has served as a detective and field training officer. He was promoted to sergeant in 2005. He's been serving as our interim commander from 2011 to the present, so we already know he can do the job because he is doing a fine job. Comes from a long line of police officers, and both his father and grandfather were commanders in the Chicago Police Departments. Your dad's over there? Commander? We can call each other Commander after this is all over. Commander, pass the potatoes, do the whole thing. All right. You're ready. Raise your right hand, please. I, Robert Tannehill,
I, Robert Tannehill,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution
to uphold the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the laws and ordinances of the City of Elmhurst,
the laws and ordinances of the City of Elmhurst,
and to discharge the duties of Commander of the Elmhurst Police Department
to discharge my duties as Commander of the Elmhurst Police Department
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The real commander. The real commander. Chief. Yeah, Chief, very good. Amanda, come on.
Good pictures. Everybody.
And next, Jim Kveton is being promoted. He started as patrol officer in 1985, made sergeant in 1997, commander in 2005, and has served as interim deputy chief since 2011 to present, and has been doing also a wonderful job. I've had the pleasure of working personally with Jim on a number of projects, and so I'm very pleased that as a friend you are receiving this promotion. So if we're ready to cook, here we go. I, James Kveton,
I, James Kveton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution
that I will uphold the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of
the
America,
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the laws and ordinances
and the laws and ordinances
of the City of Elmhurst,
of the City of Elmhurst,
and I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of Deputy Police Chief
of Deputy Police Chief
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. All right, Jim. And now our Police Chief, Mike Ruth, for a few comments.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm overwhelmed by the number of guests here this evening that have witnessed and participated in the swearing-in of Jim Kveton and Bob Tannehill. Especially, I wanted to recognize a few of retirees, members of the Elmhurst Police Department who served 30-plus years that made a special effort to come out here tonight to witness this historic event. Retired Police Chief Steve Neubauer. Steve, very nice. Retired Deputy Chief Jim Doherty. Retired Deputy Chief Dan Buens. And last but not least, retired Commander Brad Lucchini. It's also heartwarming to see the current members of the Elmhurst Police Department that have taken time out of their schedule, both on duty and off duty, to be here tonight. These brave men and women provide safety and security for our residents 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There aren't a lot of accolades. People usually aren't real happy to see us when we knock at their door. But you can be assured that these fine men and women that serve in this department provide the highest level of service that they can to the community. Jim and I just wanted to say in closing that I'm very, very proud of Jim Kveton and Bob Tannehill. They've done a good job for the last year in an acting capacity, and I look forward for both of them to play a very, very important part of the future of the department. So again, congratulations and welcome to the administrative staff.
Bob, good to see you. Congratulations.
Again, congratulations.
My pleasure. And we can make it happen. Congratulations.
You know?
Commander,
Well deserved.
congratulations. Nice job.
Congratulations.
Well deserved. Congratulations, Bob. Well deserved.
All right, Jim, ready to go? Good job. How was your trip? Good, good. All right, Bob, watch it.
Can't believe you gave up the
Don't fall. Congratulations. Watch your step. Take care.
Went to Alabama and I see Steve.
Yeah, and I did, I stayed right next to Doherty.
for the budget balancing.
Yeah.
Stay and listen though. That sounds fun, right? No, yeah. I don't live here. I live in Grand Rapids. Anything else? You got to stay up on the.
Wish I could help you, but no idea.
Okay, we need to continue on with a very lengthy agenda, I suspect, tonight. So if you are not staying for the next part of our meeting, who controls these police officers? Chief?
They're not listening to a word you're saying. All right.
Surprised that you give him a chance to clear the room.
Yeah.
Let my cop, tell my cop to throw him
Yeah.
out.
Where's,
Are you gonna cry?
2 pages.
I guess for that item. On its face, it's a question.
Like he was sick today. Like he called me earlier this morning and said he was sick. I didn't think that he was going to try and make it just because of the important nature of things, but
When you're sick, you're sick.
I can understand that.
He could still saunter in here. But I'm just stretching. He's not here.
Don't think that's possible.
I am too.
Give me a break. Really?
Look at that smiling face. How do you? Why would you get nervous?
I'm happy to.
Doesn't matter what Diane says in the meetings.
Absolutely. And the thing is, she's supposed to be on here
And look at ear to ear,
for that, and we hear, the assurance that
smiling ear to ear.
it doesn't matter who says it. And I'd ask the budget question, and you'd ask the same question, and because why we.
Oh boy. I mean, as far as the second meeting is concerned, I'm absolved because I asked the question.
Oh, she's here.
You know, I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to order now. At this point, I would ask if anyone has any written communications or petitions that they would like to deliver to the council to please rise and present them to Clerk Spencer. There being none, we'll proceed to the public forum part of our agenda. Clerk Spencer, do we have anyone signed in this evening to speak before the council?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor, and I'll start with Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
And for those of you who have not spoken before the council, please proceed up to the podium, state your name and your address, and each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes.
Claude's taking it.
Claude Pogich, 566 West Gladys. I had the grand opportunity going down to zoning and planning. It was about the so-called Addison parking lot. A young man stood up there and said he belonged to the Addison LLC. When I asked if he's a member, he said no. If he works for him, no. So I don't know what the heck he does. And I don't know how that parking lot got to be Addison LLC. But he rambled on and said, Representatives of the city wanted 6 stories. Representative of the cities want, what else? They want parking. Representative of the cities want setbacks. Well, since he doesn't represent Edison LLC and he doesn't represent the city, I don't know what he was doing there, but he was just running off. Then Miss Pez's husband showed up, and he started rattling off a few things like, oh, the building might be 70 feet high. We're going to have a gymnasium in there. We're going to have restricted parking, unless you want to park on the roof. And that's all demanded by the city. Now, I've come to a lot of meetings. I haven't heard anything about no gymnasium. I haven't heard anything about offices. I haven't heard anything about the building being 6 stories high. I haven't heard anything about Addison LC. I haven't heard any of that. And then, wouldn't you know it, people got to walk up and say the state's attorney of Illinois has got a little request of the aldermen of Elmhurst. Just a little request. Now, how did we get to this state? Who in this town is saying they want a 6-story garage? Who says they want a gymnasium? And how did we get to the state's attorney to be involved in a parking garage? That no time in all the meetings I've come here that it's even been brought up, discussed, or even said, let's do it. And I got a guy from Addison LLC. Who in the Sam hell is he? If Addison LLC owns the property, what the hell am I spending money moving utilities for? They got it. It's theirs. They want the adjustments. Let them pay to move the utilities. What's this town involved in spending money for? Kennedy didn't say that LLC, we're doing them a favor, but we spent $120,000 so far.
Mr. Pogash.
And I'd like, hold it, one other thing before I leave, just to change the subject because you're going to hear enough of it. Tell me why the school district and the park district pay $2.84 a cubic meter for water, when I pay $1.90.
Next, Elaine Fleming, 188 North Addison Avenue.
Hello, my name is Elaine Fleming. I live at 188 Addison Avenue. And I am a psychotherapist and have been in practice in Elmhurst for about 27 years and a resident of Elmhurst for 27 years. I represent a group of concerned citizens who have been in dialogue with the Elmhurst Library regarding policy and procedures for dealing with very violent M-rated video games. Most people in Elmhurst don't realize that we circulate very violent M-rated video games at the Elmhurst Library. We are urging them to create policy and procedure to deal with these more effectively. It has become a national conversation. Most recently, last Sunday, Face the Nation had a panel of experts that were discussing the effects of these very, very violent video games. Elmhurst College President Ray joined a campaign of other colleges to see if we can reduce the level of violent culture in our area. Elmhurst Chief Police Ruth wrote just last week about trying to reduce the level of violence and mentioned violent video games in his article. Our group is concerned that purchasing these games is not in the best interest of Elmhurst residents or in the use of our tax dollars to purchase them. Specifically, we have asked the library board to help raise awareness and educate Elmhurst and our community about the most violent M-rated games that we are talking about here, to develop policies governing the evaluation of these games. They're continuing to be more violent and to be more graphic, and they are in the first person where police officers and prostitutes, and there's a lot of shooting of guns, and this is a very big topic now, I think, in our community as well. We are not asking for a ban on video games. What we are asking for, and I want to make sure you hear this clearly, that the library plans to implement some policy and some procedures to evaluate and carefully consider continuing to purchase and distribute and circulate these most violent of the video games. We are eager to hear the library's plans and to implement some of these plans based on our request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy Fishin, 320 North York. Sorry if I mutilated your name.
You got it right. It's Judy Fusion, 320 North York. I'm the owner of Al's Hobby Shop in downtown Elmhurst, 121 to 123 Addison. We have been in downtown Elmhurst 66 years. We love this town. We love the feeling of this town. But we are so against this 6-story monstrosity that they're putting up on Addison, or they want to put up on Addison. I was at the zoning board meeting the other night. I didn't understand what they were talking about when they said that the building was going to be compatible and aesthetically correct to meet the buildings around them. I don't understand how a 6-story building can be compatible with a 3-story building when the whole front of the building is going to be a prairie style, which has no feeling or warmth or anything, and then you have they want to make a 20-foot sidewalk. I didn't know that York High School marching band would be needed. What do you need a 20-foot sidewalk for? I didn't understand that. So it seems to me that we're going to be losing on-street parking if we put in a 20-foot sidewalk. They also mentioned that there was going to be a lot of pedways and things in and out of the alleys, which is a wonderful thing because people will be able to walk and everything, but there were no plans for loading docks in the back of this building. So where are all the retail spaces going to get, that are supposed to be on the bottom floor, going to get their merchandise from? They're not going to be able to have semis come down those alleys and make those turns because it's not possible with the way the alleys are on those buildings over on York. And it'll be very unsafe for anybody walking or children in strollers or bikes that they have there now, so I don't understand what that was going to be about. We were approached about a year and a half ago to see if we wanted to move our shop into that retail area. At that time, there was no mention of anything but 4 stories. It was going to be 1 story of retail and 3 stories of parking, which we can certainly use in the town of Elmhurst. But then at the zoning meeting, we were told they wanted to go to 6 stories, add 2 floors above the retail into offices for LLC manager, Addison Management Company, and then have 2 more stories for parking with a basketball court. I don't think it was a gymnasium, I think it was a basketball court. So by the time all the parking places for all the employees for the retail and for those 2 floors of office buildings and the basketball court was put in, there would be less parking than the original plan with 3 stories of parking and 1 story of retail. So I did not understand that either. That's why we were against that.
Ms. Fusion, your 3 minutes are up, but if you want to conclude.
Well, the only thing I else will say that I love the downtown area, and I have been just recently in Glen Ellen, and it was a warm, wonderful feeling. There was 1 3-story building there, and there was not 1 empty store in the town, and they were thriving like crazy. 2 nights ago, I was in Downers Grove, and they had 1 4-story building, and I saw 1 empty business there. Everything else was busy with lights and everything going on. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
John Dulles, 128 West Addison.
Good evening. I'm John Dulles. I own Dulles Cleaners, 128 North Addison, right across the street from the proposed parking deck. I was here last Thursday, and what I heard made me very sick.
to my stomach. The information that I heard about the financing and purchasing of this property made me sick to my stomach. I think all of you, I don't know if you've heard all the information that came out Thursday night from Mr. Pezza and the others that were here, made me sick to my stomach. I'm a second generation business owner in Elmhurst, 53 years. My father started our business in 1958 on Addison Street, and the whole time we've been on Addison. My late father and myself have been saying that we do need parking on Addison, but the way this parking proposal came, the way the city bought this property, behind closed doors, and they don't want to release the tapes, it seems to me like it's becoming a Nixonian government here. We should have sunshine, and it should be exposed here. Our money is being used here. I watched when they demolished the building for 5 weeks. 60 people came up to my store and all asked me. They said, "John, what's going on across the street?" Nobody knew what was going on across the street. I watched them pull the tank out of the ground after the city purchased the property. I watched them drill, test the corners of the property after the city bought the property. All these things were done, and nobody knew about it. All these things were done after the city bought the property. This is not right. I strongly suggest this evening that the Addison Street garage project stop and be fully evaluated from the conception of when it was purchased, how it was purchased, and this is our city money. This is the taxpayers' money. You owe it to us. All of you up there work for us. You're elected. We need transparency in this town. I don't want it to be another Chicago. So I strongly suggest tonight that the Addison Street garage project put on halt, stop it, until all the questions are answered by all of you and all who are involved with this project from the very beginning. Maybe we have to subpoena Marcucci, former Mayor Marcucci, and Mayor DeCiani, and all who are involved to get to the bottom of this, because we're talking $5 million investment already just for the ground. Plus, we don't know how much it's going to cost us, how much it costs us to pull the tanks up and the testing and everything else. People didn't know about it. They kept on asking me. When I talked to the mayor 2 weeks ago, he came by my store. And I said to the mayor, "Mayor, we got to have transparency here. We have to have more open meetings." And he says, they knew about it. Everybody knows about it. I says, "Mayor, they don't know about it." All these people came up to me at my store and said they did not know about this project.
Mr. Dulles,
You owe that to them. And then you walked away out of my store and you said, "Oh, Mr. Dulles, you're never going to be happy." I'm not going to be happy, Mr. Mayor. I know that you're a temporary mayor. You're not going to be on. But I think, you know what? We got elections coming up. And transparency has got to be very important.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. We have to go by the rules, as you know.
Liz Whittemire, 908 Sailor.
Good evening, Liz Woodmeyer, 908 Sailor. I'm here tonight to speak about the agenda item 9A, titled A Resolution Regarding the Release of Certain Closed Session Minutes. I'm requesting that our council vote in favor tonight to release the closed meeting minutes from September 10th and September 17th of 2012, and further ask of you to include the meeting recordings. I encourage a unanimous decision from our council to follow the direction outlined in the letter from the Attorney General's office. Excuse me. This is a much needed and is necessary in order for you to show that you respect the residents of Elmhurst and respect the ruling from the Attorney General's office. Without that decision, without your unanimous vote, anything less is your admission, in my opinion, to your guilt and willingness to involve yourselves in a meeting of discussion of matter that should not have been discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Armstrong, 210 North Addison.
Dan Armstrong, 210 North Addison Avenue, and I would just like to echo those sentiments. I was dismayed to see that the council had been found to violate the Open Meetings Act. I think it's a serious breach of trust, and I would encourage, first of all, I want to thank Councilman Pezza for bringing that to the attention of the Attorney General's office, and I would request that the council comply fully with the requests of the Attorney General's office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline Avenue.
Good evening, Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline. Continuing with the topic about the Attorney General's office decision regarding the Open Meetings Act violation, which related to the closed session discussions on the Addison Street Development Project. As stated, the simple remedy of this violation is given in the opinion. Immediately release the closed session minutes and verbatim audio recordings of the discussions in question to the public. Y'all also know and have stated in your own materials that it's an advisory opinion only, so you can't be legally compelled to comply, but the Attorney General's opinion should hold significant weight, and you should comply with it because it's the right thing to do. I fully expect to see significant movement to that end during the course of tonight's meeting. Related to this matter is the public hearing for the Addison project, which got underway before the Zoning Commission this past Thursday. I was also in attendance. I believe that that hearing, which is currently scheduled to resume on March 14th, should remain open until such time as this Open Meetings Act issue is resolved. During the hearing, the city attorney, acting as the reviewer for the Zoning Commission, stated that this Open Meeting Act situation was not germane to the Zoning Commission process, and that just doesn't make sense to me. First, I wonder how an independent determination can be made as to whether the closed session material is germane or not germane until the information is made part of the public record. Second, I believe it's possible that aspects of the closed session discussions affected the substance and quality of the conditional use application itself. Those closed meetings were held on September 10th and September 17th of 2012, and the applicant's responses to multiple items in the conditional use application were initially submitted in a document dated October 1st, September 12th. And those are the same responses which appear on the version of the conditional use application currently being considered by the Zoning Commission. It makes me wonder about the flow of information from the closed sessions directly to the developer. Third, as a citizen interested in this process, my only chance to be heard by an independent administrative body is during the public hearing before the Zoning Commission, and after that, everything becomes a political process. It seems to me that I should have the opportunity to review all available information pertaining to the project before I decide how I want to present my viewpoint to the Commission. Until I am able to hear with my own ears the audio tapes from the 2 September meetings, my review of available information remains incomplete. We may or may not learn new information after hearing the recordings, but to push forward with the public hearing before the recordings are even released just seems wrong to me. Finally, tonight I'd like to ask that an independent counsel be retained to act as reviewer for the Zoning Commission for this hearing, so as not to have the city attorney sitting on too many sides of the table at the same time. With the city being a party to the application through its partnership with the applicant, having an independent counsel to advise the commission would serve to reduce the appearance of conflict. And I wonder if this could be initiated by the city attorney recusing himself and requesting that an independent counsel be retained. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brenner.
David Pezza, 275 Cottage Hill.
Hi, my name is David Pezza. I live at 275 Cottage Hill. I'm here to talk about the Addison Garage zoning hearing last Thursday, February 28th. I've attended 20 to 30 public hearings at the Zoning Commission and numerous public meetings since 2001, and I'm a vocal opponent of height and density variances in the downtown. They are simply not wanted by the public nor needed. Zoning hearings are grounded in the United States Constitution Due Process Clause, and I have commented before that I am not sure why one has to surrender their constitutional rights when walking into Elmhurst City Hall. Also, being grounded in the Due Process Clause is one of the reasons why there is no Open Meetings Act exemption for zoning. Zoning matters need to be fully discussed in the public. I attended the Zoning Commission meeting on Thursday, and it felt much different from others that I've attended before. It felt more like a sham public process, something that is not what it purports to be, a spurious imitation, a hoax. As to the garage development itself, there is a significant financial cost to the taxpayers of expanding the project with absolutely no public benefit and a loss of usable parking. But there is a huge gain for a private developer who includes a political insider at the time this project was first presented, behind closed doors, I might add. Rather than bore you with the details of the problems at the hearing, they included lack of proper public notice, the fact that the developer sent a low-level operational manager who read a script instead of attending, modified documents, and the like. Two important parts of the project requiring variances were not on the agenda: the lack of a required loading dock and the fact that the structure is actually 78 feet tall, not 68, to its highest point, which is a full 40 feet higher than the taller theater building behind it and almost 75% taller than the legally permitted height. The developer must not have known these variances were needed. In addition, the Zoning Commission had no interest in hearing what Lisa Madigan's office had to say about illegal private meetings of the City Council on this matter. I guess if the City Council and City staff has already decided and met behind closed doors on this matter and figured out that they have the votes to approve it regardless of what the Zoning Commission recommends, there's no real reason for the Zoning Commission to be worried about doing its job, is there? Finally, and more troubling, when I was presenting facts into the public record, the zoning commissioner, who I never met before, attacked me for presenting, in his words, conspiracy theories. This comment actually made it into the press. I am not sure what his basis was for doing so, but I will tell you that raising the specter of a conspiracy has long been used to suppress discussion of all sorts of crimes against democracy. It has been said that there is no more exquisite method of silencing dissent or shutting down inconvenient inquiry than to charge somebody with conspiracy theory. Funny that a zoning commissioner would raise the specter of a conspiracy at a time when there needs to be an investigation about what goes on behind closed doors in Elmhurst City Hall. We as Americans all deserve much better. Finally, I'd like to thank my wife, Paula Pezza, for having the guts to stand up and do the right thing in this matter and go to the Attorney General's office with something that she thought was absolutely wrong and incorrect. We should all aspire to be more like her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Terry Pastica, 182 North York.
Good evening. My name is Terry Pastica. I'm an executive director and a community lawyer with the Citizen Advocacy Center at 182 North York Road. Several comments have been made tonight regarding the immediate release of closed session tapes, but from my perspective, this issue is much larger than closed session violation. It's at 2 meetings. The OMA complaint had to do with questioning the authenticity of government decision-making processes that are going on right now inside City Hall. CAC has watched the evolution of this Addison Street project since 2009, and we've been asking questions from the very beginning. We've been asking questions about why the initial contract and the redevelopment agreement was lopsided. We've been asking why hasn't there been more public dialogue about this project, and there's been silence from the council on this. The release of the closed minutes and the tapes per the direction of the AG's office is merely a remedy to a symptom of a much deeper problem. The city's response to the initial concerns raised about violations of the Open Meetings Act and closed session on this topic was met with extraordinary arrogance. It was not taken seriously, and that is an indication of a problem. I've been hearing a lot of commentary and reading a lot about individual public officials and the city council talking about transparency, good government, ethical government, yet the entire public process around this project has been put into question because of the time and place of city council discussions. For those of you who are really interested in leading the charge on government transparency and openness and want to wear that badge, I want to ask you to take the lead on 2 issues. Number 1, moving to request that all closed session tapes related to the Addison Street project since its inception, which is 2008, be released to the public. The second thing is that I would like a motion made that any council member who substantively participated in any land use, zoning conversation on this subject in closed session be recused from voting and discussing on this project, be it in the committee meeting or city council meeting. I've been before this council several times talking about doing what's right versus doing what's legal, and the AG's opinion, in my opinion, has brought this conversation to an entirely different level. Now it's about changing the culture of what's going on, and that involves a whole lot more than merely voting to release public documents that a higher authority has instructed you to do after you've refused to do so. Releasing the tapes and documentations for all information related to this project since 2008 and adopting a recusal standard for anyone who substantively participated in discussions related to height, setbacks, variance, use, will actually embody the principles of open government rather than relegating those ideas to mere press conference or self-congratulatory sound bites. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pastico.
Jan Dorner, 585 South Prospect.
Good evening. I'm Jan Dorner, 585 South Prospect, and I'm here as a private citizen not representing any organization or group. I believe in open governmental systems that is representative, accountable, and responsive. I'm sure everyone on the dais feels the same. So I would ask that you follow through on what previously has been requested, release of the verbatim tapes, and protect the Elmhurst citizens' right to know and facilitate citizens' participation in government decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorner.
Terrence Leon, 767 South Hillside. Not sure if I got that right.
What happened to the mic on the other side?
Good evening. I'd like to apologize for my somewhat scrawling handwriting. My last name is pronounced Lean, and the address is 707 South Hillside.
My apologies as well.
No, that's, I've got arthritis, it's a little shaky. Just a moment of nostalgia. About 48 years ago, I was out knocking on doors and ringing doorbells as a candidate for alderman, at that time from the 5th Ward of the city of Elmhurst, and was fortunate enough to get elected and consider it one of the fine experiences in my life to have served as an alderman. Due to boundary shifts, I'm now in the 7th Ward, and we resided at our home for just over 50 years. Tonight, I'd just like to encourage the city administration and or the city council to cooperate in terms of the opinion rendered by the Attorney General to release the minutes of the September 10th and 17th meetings. I think it would be a great assist to the electorate to have a better understanding of the intricacies and some of the efforts that go into development, and allow us to understand, in a sense, how our tax money is being funded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman.
Milt Honnell, 167 Jackson.
Milt Honnell, 167 East Jackson, Elmhurst. I am here to request the City Council to release the closed session tapes. The Illinois General Office asked the city to release. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The last person to sign in to speak, Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street.
Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street. Today is NPC International Badge Day, celebrated by sorority women from coast to coast and around the world. One of the things that this day is designed to do is to allow us to reflect on why we like our membership. One of the things that is important to me is the fact that my sorority has certain ideals: truth, justice, wisdom, and more. In addition to that, I like the fact that we are so involved in philanthropies. Elmhurst Panhellenic, the local arm for the alumni of these sororities, is having their fashion show and shopping fundraiser at the Wilder Mansion on Friday. It's called Wild for Fashion. People can still sign up for tickets going through our website, elmhurstpanhellenic.org. And so that's one of the things, that's my announcement. Now on to my public comment. I apologize for not doing this at the last meeting. However, I am in support of the Southwest Wet Weather Control Facility. I don't know, it's a mouthful project you have there, Mr. Kennedy. And anyway, that project is the first out the gate of the projects related to water management in Elmhurst, Illinois, and it is the first drop in the bucket, and we are in support of that. And finally, in listening to all the other commenters, I support what they say, and I agree, release the tapes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Are there any individuals who would like to speak that didn't have the opportunity to sign in? Please approach the microphone and state your name.
Sorry, I couldn't get past the policeman there. My name is Susan Smentek, and I live at 196 North Larch Avenue in Elmhurst. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I've read the letter from the Office of the Attorney General dated February 26th about the violation of the Open Meetings Act. I also attended the Zoning and Planning Commission hearing last week and heard the representative from Addison Corridor LLC, Arco Murray National, ask for a zoning change to allow a 68-foot building where the current zoning will allow 45 feet, in addition asking for relief from setback requirements. During the hearing, it became apparent that the tallest part of the building is actually closer to 78 feet. They intend to extend the building over the public way. Their offices and retail space will receive all of the prime parking. We will lose parking on the surface. The public will get fewer parking spaces with the 6-story structure than it would with the 4-story plan. And they'd like for the taxpayers of Elmhurst to pay for them to build an indoor basketball court for their offices. I'm against changing the current zoning, besides being aghast at their request to spend taxpayer money to enrich their private company. I don't believe that their plan enhances the downtown area, and it actually makes it a little less pedestrian-friendly, in my opinion. Considering the project is clearly in the public approval process right now, and that the Attorney General letter clearly states to remedy this by releasing the minutes and the verbatim recordings immediately, I am just asking, I'm interested in hearing about the project. I'd like to know verbatim, unredacted, what was said there. And since we're discussing it now, I just urge that you do release the tapes of those sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mantek. Any other speakers? All right, very good. We'll move to announcements. Any announcements today?
Voting announcement.
Clerk Spencer?
Thank you. I have some information regarding voter registration and early voting. It's election time, and you're going to hear a lot of this from me, but I think it's important that I keep reminding everyone so they can get out and vote. Tuesday, March 12, 2013, is the last day to register to vote or transfer registration in person at City Hall in order to be able to vote on April 9th. So remember, March 12th, important date. Grace period registration at the DuPage Election Commission office only is March 13th through April 6th. An individual may register to vote or change their registration and actually get to vote all at the same time. Now for early voting, once again, I want to repeat, I think this is a four-peat. Elmhurst will have early voting here at City Hall. for the April 9th consolidated election, right here in council chambers on March 25th through April 5th, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Residents, if you can't make it to City Hall, you can vote at any early voting location in DuPage County. Hours, locations are listed on the city's website and the DuPage County Election Commission website. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple announcements from Cool Cities Coalition. In our packets this week, we have flyers, and on one side is information about the toter transition. And this is an example of how Cool Cities Coalition wants to help the city to promote some of their sustainability efforts. Noted are ways in which we can reuse our containers, information on recycling bins, specifically that between March 15th and April 15th, the city has arranged for collection sites at Barron's Park, or will be arranging for collection sites at Barron's Park, City Hall, and York Commons. And that Cool Cities has identified some organizations that are interested in collecting and reusing some bins. And if there are any more out there that would like to collect, they should contact Community Development at 530-3020. And then on the other side, so they use both sides, being sustainable. On Wednesday, March 20th, Cool Cities is hosting Healthy Home, Healthy Wallet, Healthy Planet, making your home energy efficient, and that's at Elmhurst Public Library. And lastly, it's not on this flyer, but it has been a while since we committed to being a cool city and taking a look at how far we are at reaching those goals established by Cool Cities on a national level. So on March 18th, we can expect an update from city staff about how far we are in the 2012 goals, and also we're already making strides in the 2015 goals. And really, in meeting with staff over the last several weeks, a lot of members of our staff have really come up with innovative ideas. They just never have a chance to brag about it. So this is a good opportunity for us to take a look at what's being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Other announcements? Alderman Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to build off the topic that Alderman Palomsky was talking about, there is a conference coming up locally that I think is quite interesting and germane to the concerns of the Elmhurst residents. It's called the Residential Recycling Conference. It's going to take place at the Hyatt Regency at the O'Hare, March 19th through the 21st. And it's obvious to me in working diligently on the refuse and recycling RFQ and source selection that we have a town that's very focused on being attentive to the environment and being very responsible in the way we dispose of our waste. There'll be a lot of familiar companies there. Our very own Allied Waste will be there, along with many others. This information was passed on the city staff, but I think any concerned resident, and we do have a lot of those in town, would find it very enriching to attend. And it's only $99.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thanks.
Since no one else is here, Alderman Gutenkopf.
One more, and it's sort of in the same environmental theme. Emerald ash borer has struck Elmhurst, and it's throughout DuPage County. A series of workshops targeting residents, basics and specifics of what every homeowner should know about emerald ash borer are going to be held throughout March. The one in DuPage County will be held on March 23rd from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Growing Place in Montgomery, Illinois. Again, that's to give you information about what homeowners should know about emerald ash borer, some ideas on treatment options, how to manage the pest options, plus ideas for replacement trees.
Thank you. And to tie into that green theme, the St. Patrick's Day Parade will be at noon this Saturday on Spring Road, and we look forward to seeing you there. No other announcements. We'll move to our consent agenda. Are there any items that any alderman would like to take off the consent agenda for separate consideration? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item G,
Item G. Any other items? There being none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, less item G. Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Bram. Clerk Spencer, if you would call the roll.
I could if I can find my roll call. It seems like I got out of order up here. I'm going to try real quick to remedy that. I don't see my folder. Oh, thank you, City Manager. Okay, I'm sorry. It was,
Less item G.
okay. Wagner.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza. Aye. Budenkoff.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, the consent agenda passes. We're on to item G. And that is a request. And clerk, if you would read the operative language of the request. Maybe a little hard here.
Okay. Want me to do that,
Yes.
Mayor? Okay. Request for a presentation on TIF districts, Alderman Healy, Palumsky, and York. It is respectfully requested that the attached request from Alderman Healy, Palumsky, and York to have a presentation on the history and current life cycle status of each TIF district, addressing reasonable scenarios with financial analysis and impact, be referred to the Committee of the Whole for review and recommendation back to the City Council. Respectfully submitted, James A. Grabowski, City Manager.
All right, may I have a motion in a second? Alderman Palumsky, Alderman York with a second. What's on the floor? Do you want to, any introduction, or Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason why I pulled this, normally I would not pull a referral, but I wanted to speak to all aldermen on the referral. I see that two are present here today to make sure that my understanding is what this referral is trying to address. My confusion lies in pretty much the subject, says that it's a presentation, which obviously would not need an official referral to the City Council. It would just be a blanket request to the City Manager. I think the points in the referral, I don't want to get into them, are valid, but I guess what I'm asking here is if I can get some consensus from Alderman York and Palumsky. Is this just a presentation, or are you two looking for something to come out of this? Because in the actual referral itself, it really made it sound like it was just a referral, not making any motion to come with an analysis of removing TIF parcels or anything along those lines. So is this a presentation, or is there something actionable that is supposed to come out of this referral?
Alderman York?
It's a request for a presentation.
Follow?
Information only?
Yes.
Follow?
Please.
Then I guess just a point of order, what would be the point of this? I guess why would we need a referral for a request?
I suppose the
presentation.
the city council could vote no, that they don't want to hear this in committee of the whole.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I asked is because I actually had a conversation similar to this. I started to pull something together to make a referral, not just a presentation, to make a referral to consider some of the topics that were made in this informational request. So I will consider making my own referral on these very topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other comment on that? Then I think we're ready to vote. Clerk Spencer, if you'll call the roll. Voice vote?
Voice vote.
Voice vote, oh, the real time saver. All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item G passes. All right, we're on to committee reports. Clerk Spencer, would you read the summary of the report?
Yes, it is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council approve the abatement of $692,505, $423,005 for the City of Elmhurst, and $269,500 for the Elmhurst Public Library to reduce the 2012 tax levy due to the determination of the tax status of the Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare Center. Since time is of the essence to file the abatement with DuPage County Treasurer's Office, the Finance Committee recommends suspending the rules to consider Ordinance 0-13-2013 at the March 4th, 2013 City Council meeting. Respectfully submitted, Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee. Unsigned by Stephen W. Hipskin, signed by Kevin L. York, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, and Scott M. Levin.
All right, can I have a motion to put that on the floor? Alderman York, second by Alderman Mulliner. All right, who's going to introduce that? You guys.
I'd just like to make a comment. I was gone last week, unable to sign it. I fully support it. I'll actually have Vice Chairman York present it. I fully support it, and I want to give a lot of kudos not only to the committee but also to our finance department for we did the right thing, and this is a very good thing, and well, I'll let Alderman York get into the details on it, but we did the right thing, and kudos to the staff.
Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Alderman Hinscombe. Basically, the report, as everybody can read, is a recommendation that we abate the tax since we're basically in front of the county actually going in and taxing the properties at this point in time. We can actually pull the $692,505 back off of the table, if you will, to be taxed to the Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare Center. Everybody's got the map and all the numbers in front of them, and basically, if we don't, we don't like to consider an ordinance on the same night we do a report, but as time is of the essence on this matter, should we not take any action tonight, the $692,000 that we're abating would actually be spread across the rest of the taxable properties in the city of Elmhurst, effectively increasing the tax rate on the residents by 3.8%. So the action we take tonight is pretty straightforward and very, very necessary. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I think everybody understands what's going on here.
I would just like to add that the request, or the information that led to this request, was received just a day or two, I believe, before the committee met. So that's one of the reasons why it was expedited. Any questions or comments on this item? All right, then we're prepared to vote this one. Roll call, Mayor. Roll call. Thank you.
York.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy. Absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, the report passes. We're going on to, oh, I'm sorry, and that is with the ordinance.
Did you approve the ordinance?
That'll come under ordinance.
It's out, it's in.
Yeah, but I think we have it a separate, comes back again down here, yeah. All right, so, okay. At this point, we're on to reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. I am going to speak a bit about the Attorney General's opinion, and usually don't speak at length, but I will this evening a bit because I think this is an issue that has been of great concern to a number of us. In October 12, Alderman Pezza sent a letter to the Illinois Attorney General alleging that the City Council had violated the Illinois Open Meetings Act by discussing in 2 closed sessions topics related to the Addison Street parking garage project. The closed sessions at issue were held on September 10th and 17th, 2012. Alderman Pezza had voiced her concern to the city staff prior to the meetings, but she did not attend the meetings herself, and her concerns were not communicated at that time to the members of the council. Pursuant to the closed session meeting on September 10th, the council, or prior to the closed session meeting on September 10th, the council was not made aware of the reason for Paula Pezza's absence, Alderman Pezza, namely that she felt it would be inappropriate to discuss the Addison LLC project in closed session. The council specifically asked the city attorney to advise it on whether or not discussing the Addison Street project in closed session would in any way violate the Open Meetings Act. The city attorney, who was present at the meeting, advised that he had reviewed the issue and then stated to the council that the issues being discussed would be limited to the sale price for 2 floors of office space, which would be permissible to discuss in closed session under the Open Meetings Act. The council proceeded to discuss the limited issue related to the Addison Street project. Specifically, the developer wanted the council to consider a new proposal that would modify the existing deal by adding 2 more floors to the proposed 4-story building. The 2 new floors would have office space, and Arco Murray, the developer, would occupy the space itself. The issue and intended discussion before the council in closed session was the economics of the proposal. The council was mindful of the fact that going above 4 stories would require zoning relief, and that an application to do so would have to proceed before the Zoning and Planning Commission. This zoning relief was not the reason for the closed session, nor was it intended that the relief would be discussed. The council was keenly aware of its obligations under the Open Meetings Act, and statements were made by various council members during the meeting to keep the council on topic. Indeed, the minutes from the 2 meetings reflect the concern of council members. The minutes from the September 17th meeting show that the city attorney, quote, reminded the city that he would monitor the discussion to let us know if it became inappropriate for executive session. The majority of the discussion was a presentation of a proposal that had been received from the developer earlier that day, and the consensus at the conclusion of that meeting was that a sales price could not be discussed until more information was obtained. At the second closed session meeting on September 17th, the council spoke more substantively regarding the economics of the developer's request to purchase 30,000 square feet of office space in the Addison Street project. Once again, the City Council was mindful of its obligation not to take a position as to the issue of whether the project would be 4, 5, or 6 stories. Indeed, at one point, one of the aldermen questioned whether or not it was appropriate to discuss the economics of a deal with a developer when an application for zoning relief had not yet been submitted. There was discussion regarding the developer filing its zoning relief request so that the economic decisions would proceed simultaneously with the zoning relief issues, with the understanding that there were no guarantees that zoning relief would be granted. The city attorney specifically pointed out that previous projects had followed the same procedure. The city attorney specifically noted the quote-unquote delicate balance between the 2 issues and advised that he would strive to keep everyone on topic. No decisions were made other than to instruct city staff to continue negotiating with the developer and to advise the developer of the need to immediately file a zoning relief request if it intended to request a building taller than 4 stories in height. Subsequent to the meeting at issue, Alderman Pezza wrote to the Illinois Attorney General to express her genuine concern that the requirements of the Open Meetings Act had not been followed with respect to the 2 meetings in question. The Attorney General's Public Access Bureau wrote to the city in November to ask for the city's position on the issue. Our city's legal counsel, who is experienced in these types of matters, again reviewed the issue and wrote to the Attorney General stating the reasons why the City of Elmhurst continued to believe that the issues discussed in closed session were permitted by one or more of the statutory exemptions to the general rule that all meetings of public bodies are to be open to the public. Specifically, the subject matter involve matters, quote, directly related to the setting of a price for the disposition of real property. At the time, I was not serving as acting mayor, but I did review the case law myself and legal authority upon which the city attorney was relying. Looking at it as an attorney, I did not see the matter as clear-cut, but it was my opinion that the city's attorney's position, and not as mayor, as an alderman, was supported by legal authority, including a decision that I was provided with by an Illinois appellate court. On December 5th, the city attorney responded on behalf of the city to the Attorney General's initial letter, stating that the legal authority and reasoning upon which he relied, should be she. Alderman Pezza responded with a letter, and the Attorney General reviewed the recordings of the meetings and wrote an advisory opinion, which we've been talking about tonight, dated February 26, 2013, stating that in her opinion, the City Council had improperly discussed the Addison Street proposal in closed session. The Open Meetings Act requires a public body to transact business in open session, open to the public. There are exceptions. There are 29 specific ones. For example, personnel matters, pending litigation, collective bargaining, purchasing securities are all exceptions, and the two upon which the city relied are the purchase and they may have not been upheld by the Illinois Attorney General, but we believe that purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body and the setting of the price for the sale or lease of property owned by a public body. As previously mentioned, the City Council relied on the advice of the city attorney. Our city attorney is highly capable and experienced municipal attorney who has guided us well in matters over the past several years. As I also previously mentioned, we believe was substantial legal basis for his advice, and that the council could appropriately discuss economic issues related to the Addison Street in closed session. I myself, as I said, read some of the cases, and was my opinion that there was a good faith basis. Most distressing to me, though, are the circumstances surrounding the closed meetings have caused the very integrity of the city council to be called into question and actions of individual aldermen to be vilified. I can personally assure you that not a single alderman, irrespective of his or her position on the closed meeting issue, has any motivation other than to do that which is best for the city. My fellow aldermen are bright, hardworking, ethical persons who give their personal time as public service to make this city a better place to live. Similarly, our staff is professional, highly qualified, and dedicated to supporting the City Council and the needs of the residents generally. The implication that any member of our city staff has willfully disregarded the Open Meetings Act or has otherwise acted inappropriately is without foundation. Attacks on the City Council and staff are wholly improper and unfair. If a mistake in judgment has been made, it was done with the best motives behind it. With respect to the Attorney General's advisory opinion, I must remind you that this is a legal process. The advisory opinion is not an order of court, nor is it a full Attorney General opinion. Rather, it is guidance from the Attorney General's Public Action Bureau to help our residents and our city best comply with the Open Meetings Act. I recognize that the Public Action Bureau has particular expertise with respect to the Open Meetings Act, and its opinion is and will be taken seriously. Our responsibility is simply not to take the Attorney General's advisory opinion and blindly do as it advises. There are points that the city attorney and I believe require clarification. As soon as we received the letter, we contacted the Assistant Attorney General to request information, including those other advisory opinions that were cited in her letter and upon which the opinion relied. Interestingly, those prior advisory opinions or remarkably, our request last week for those advisory opinions were responded to by the Assistant Attorney General asking us to do a Freedom of Information Act request, which we've done. So much for transparency. As the acting mayor, it's my responsibility to lead the council to comply with the law and to make sure the city's other interests are protected and that legal procedure is followed. The advisory opinion has sparked a flame that has been fueled by speculation and misinformation, and it is in our community's best interest to control that fire. The public need not take my word for it. Based upon my review of the recordings, it is my position that irrespective of the final decision on the advisory opinion, the recordings should be released so that the public can see for itself that there is no conspiracy or attempt to do anything other than to give the best direction with respect to the Addison Street project. It is not, however, my decision alone. The City Council itself must decide whether or not to release the recordings. I'm not requiring or asking the City Council to vote on that tonight, as I believe that it is fair and responsible for any alderman who wants to listen to the recordings before voting on the issue have the opportunity to do so. I would myself have not felt comfortable voting on the issue without having heard the recordings of the meetings that happened almost 6 months ago. I do plan on putting the issue on the agenda of the next City Council meeting. If the Council votes to release the recordings, they will be made available the very next day. If the Council desires to rely on those aldermen, including myself, who've already reviewed the recordings and want to vote on it tonight, it may be done, but I don't want to force anyone to act on it without full knowledge. And I should mention that my review was to see if there was anything dangerous in terms of our negotiation with the developer that would hurt that effort. If there's a vote tonight that they be made available, they would still have to be separated so that the unrelated portions are removed. The ultimate response to the Attorney General's advisory opinion may happen down the road. I can assure you that the Council will be far more sensitive and diligent with respect to Open Meetings Act violations that Alderman Pezza has brought to our attention. On tonight's agenda is the release of the minutes of 2 closed meetings. These are the minutes as opposed to the recordings. We fully recognize that the minutes convey minimal information, meaningful to the public's concern, and as I found myself saying with some frequency, irrespective of what course of action is taken, there will always be those who criticize. Even on the release of the minutes, I have had strong opinions on both sides. If we release the minutes, I am told that we are trying to pretend like we are taking meaningful action. If we do not release them, we are accused of not even making the minimal effort to provide basic information. My goal tonight is to convey the continuing intent of our City Council to do the right thing, to comply with the law, to serve the public, and to be transparent as possible as we conduct our business. If we have failed in any way, it does not mean that it was done intentionally and that we cannot improve. If the recordings are released 2 weeks hence, I intend to continue to work with our city manager and our city attorney to continue discussions with the Attorney General to better refine our position on closed sessions as we move forward. As an attorney, I can say with confidence that the issue at hand was hardly straightforward. Finally, which doesn't really mean finally in this case, I want to clarify that the processes related to the 2 separate issues, both related to the Addison Street, there are 2 separate issues. First, in 2009, the city entered into a development agreement for the project. The topic of the closed sessions was a potential modification of that already existing agreement to sell additional space within the building to be used for the office. Irrespective of whether or not the city elects to modify that development agreement, there is an existing agreement for a 4-story parking garage with retail spaces, and we are a party to that agreement. The framework in terms of the development agreement are quite complex. It has been my stated position to have, or intention as well, to have a committee of the whole meeting, to have city staff provide an overview of the project so that both members of the City Council and the public understand the genesis of the project, the terms of the current agreement, and where we are on the timeline. After I announced my intent to have that presentation included on the second City Council meeting in February, a concern was raised that it would interfere with the zoning relief hearing that began before the Zoning and Planning Commission last Thursday. The second process is that request for zoning relief. The Commission's job is to hear evidence to determine whether or not the Addison Street project should remain at 4 stories, as is permitted by city ordinance, or be permitted to increase to 6 stories by way of some sort of relief, which would require approval of the Commission and later the City Council. The City Council, the Commission will continue its deliberation or hearing evidence on March 14th. If the City Zoning Commission and the City Council decline the request to allow 6 stories, the building will still be built, but with 4 stories. We will have that follow-up committee of the whole meeting so that we can all hear about the project, how it started, how we got to where we are today, so that we're starting from the same common basis of fact and knowledge. The Addison Street project is important to our community, and I personally hope that it proceeds expeditiously. I know that many of our City Council members feel likewise. I'm hopeful that the resolution of the Open Meetings Act issue will not in any way interfere with the merits of this development. And I thank you for your time for a rather long statement. We will be discussing the resolution, and I think it would be appropriate for the aldermen who want to respond on that issue to do so under that agenda topic. City Manager?
Thank you. I have 2 quick items. As a result of the ComEd presentation at the last council meeting, my COP has scheduled a meeting with staff and the ComEd employees who are here, along with some others, and with our chairman of the subcommittee on ComEd and a gentleman from the Galvin Initiative who has been working with us to talk about the long-term plans. This is something that Assistant Manager Kopp has been working on with ComEd for some time, and so we're just following up on that long-term plan. Once we get results, we'll report back to the council on how ComEd is moving forward. Secondly, recently, actually, I believe today, was discovered a sinkhole, or excuse me, a broken stormwater main, and I wanted to let everybody know that the intersection of Jackson and Hawthorne will be closed for approximately up to 7 days to repair that. That is a large 60-inch storm sewer that is probably 100 years old, and from time to time this happens, so our crews are out there, and we're talking with contractors regarding different contractors regarding price, timing, and how to fix that. So, as a heads up, that intersection will be closed for about a week.
Thank you. And although not on the agenda, I did want to report that we had a follow-up discussions with District 205 on the intergovernmental agreement, and I think we're 99% of the way there, and I hope to have something to report favorably in terms of final language for the next City Council meeting. Resolutions. Clerk Spencer, if you would read the result.
Do you want me to read the resolution? I know.
The whole resolution?
Do you want me to? I'm just asking.
No,
You don't need to? Okay. This is R09-2013, a resolution regarding the release of certain closed session minutes.
Yeah. The minutes are...
There's no, do you want me to say the dates? They're not on the title thereof, so.
They're in the body.
Okay.
They're in the body.
Closed session minutes of September 10th, 2012, and September 17th, 2012.
All right. Can I have a motion? Alderman Mulliner, second. Alderman Wagner. Discussion. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your very respectful presentation. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we are here tonight with this issue before us regarding a taxpayer-funded development that has been discussed behind closed doors several times from its conception in 2008. Since my term began in 2009, this project has been discussed several times in closed session, some of which made me uncomfortable and unsure of the merit and the appropriateness of the details that were discussed. I informed staff, as the mayor stated, on both accounts of the September meetings after receiving a 28-page memo just 2 hours prior to the start of the closed meeting that I did not believe the information contained qualified for the closed session discussion. I informed staff that I would not be present for those discussions, and it was my assumption that staff would have relayed to my fellow council members why I was not present. Due to my uncertainty that this did not fall under the exceptions of the Open Meetings Act, I therefore did not attend these meetings. Unfortunately, they chose to go forward with both meetings and the discussions. After the meetings were held, I followed the proper procedure, came in to City Hall to review the tapes in the presence of our OMA officer, Clerk Spencer, and after reviewing them, it only gave me more resolve on my position. It became clear after my review that the information gathered during those closed meetings was being taken back to the developer, which meant negotiations were going on prior to the public ever having their say. What kind of capacity does the public now have to influence the project when the parameters of the project have already been discussed and pre-decided behind closed doors? This now left me with 4 options in which to get an answer as to whether or not I was correct. I could have filed a complaint with the DuPage County State's Attorney. I could have filed a lawsuit against the City of Elmhurst. I could have sought legal opinion from the State's Attorney, from the Attorney General's office, or I could have done nothing, which I could not do. I chose to file the complaint with the Public Access Counselor at the Attorney General's office with the help of the Citizen Advocacy Center. I had to make a legal argument to the Attorney General, and then the city was allowed to make their argument in response to my complaint. I chose to file a complaint because I thought, though it was not the easy thing to do or the popular thing to do, it was the right thing to do. After reviewing the tapes and minutes of those meetings, the Attorney General's office agreed with me that the Open Meetings Act had been violated. So where does this leave us now? We have a legal opinion from the Attorney General that states the statute was violated, directing the council to immediately release the portions of the closed session minutes and the closed session verbatim recordings relating to the discussions in question to the public. The release of the written minutes is simple, being they are very general and vague in content, and the audio recordings should be released immediately, as stated by the Attorney General. Playing the verbatim tapes is only a remedy to that particular violation, not the deeper issue at hand, which is this now concept of these done deals that so many people speak of. When the public questions something being a done deal in the past, we've always assured them that this is not the case because we are going through the process. We have just begun the public part of the process for this development, yet the discussions that took place behind these doors show the entire process around this project has been tainted now. The public and the developer have not been on an even playing field with respect to influencing their public officials about why the project, funded with their tax dollars, should or should not move forward. We should have first decided in a neutral and uninfected process whether or not the people wanted the 2 extra floors. If it were yes, then great. We could have legally then gone into closed session and discussed how much we were willing to sell the 2 floors of office space for, and we could have decided how we were going to sell them and who to. I believe the tapes will show when released that the uses of the building, which are the public, before the public in zoning right now, have already been discussed, along with pricing and other issues that should have come after the public process had been exhausted. The other matters being discussed should have never come forward until after the zoning was approved and in its final stage, being the city council vote. I'd like to make a motion to amend this evening's resolution to add, after the words written minutes, to include and verbatim audio recordings of closed session meetings, and also to include the clause that states any council member who commented on any of the matters the Attorney General's office said were illegal now have a conflict of interest and must be recused from all hearings, discussions, and votes on this matter.
Is there a second to that motion before we discuss it? Alderman Gutenkopf.
I second the motion.
Do you have that, Alderman Pez, do you have a written copy that I may have?
Sort of.
Thank you. We have no idea. So we're adding to release the verbatim audio recordings of the closed session meetings and that any council member who commented on any of the matters the AG office said were illegal now has a conflict of interest and must be recused from all hearings, discussion, and votes on this matter. For clarification, this matter is tonight or the entire, what does this matter refer to?
Consensus of the project as a whole, when it comes to a vote.
So not just what we're voting on tonight, but anything to do with Addison Street LLC. All right, is there a second to that? Alderman Gutkov, you're seconding. All right. Discussion. Alderman Molnar?
I do not have any problem with releasing the minutes and the audio recordings. I see nothing in those that are going to be an issue. I understand the concern that's out there, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we are doing things in public. So I have absolutely no problem releasing all of that information. My only concern with the amendment is that I don't believe that aldermen who have a responsibility up here of to helping to do economic development as well as our other duties should recuse themselves from this particular item, because I believe this item is much too large for us to just sit back. I don't believe that anything was done incorrectly and improper. I may disagree with the AG's opinion, but I say that we should go ahead and release that information. So I support releasing the audio tapes and the other part, but not the part of recusing aldermen. I don't think that's appropriate.
Just for a point of clarification, I will raise as chair. I think what Alderman Pezza is actually trying to do, because a recusal I see is that someone recuses themselves. You can't recuse somebody else. But what you're saying is to bar them essentially from to disqualify or to bar them from participating. But just because Alderman Mona, you're saying that as if the motion is asking someone to recuse himself, and I'm going to ask for clarification, is your motion to ask aldermen to recuse themselves or to have the council bar them from participation?
That if they spoke in closed session already stating their feeling on this, then as to the public, I don't believe it's fair that they now speak as if it's the first time they're addressing this. So I would say that they should not have the ability to vote on this.
All right. I will hold my comment for now and go to Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would say, well said, Mr. Mayor, in your update and announcement. Very thorough and concise summary of what went on. I personally have reviewed the audio tapes, and after receiving this letter, I called City Manager Grabowski, I called City Attorney Storino, and had several conversations. I summarized in a letter to them, and I'm not going to read the entire letter, but I'll give you a couple of the points. I am requesting the following actions. The immediate release of the audio recordings from both meetings. I understand the City Attorney is seeking clarification from Ms. Levine regarding her opinion. In the meantime, I'm asking that a request be sent to the Illinois Attorney General's office to provide Elmhurst City Council with an expanded Open Meetings Act education program. As we have all complied with the training online, I think clarification and additional training from the Attorney General's office would be beneficial. Finally, I would say, Mayor Levin alluded to this, starting now and in the future, I'm requesting that all potential executive meeting attendees, that includes City Council members, the mayor, clerk, treasurer, city manager, and other appropriate attendees, be immediately notified of any objection regarding a proposed executive session meeting prior to the commencements of said meeting. Please consider this a standing request. Now, that having been said, I would ask, and then I have a comment, but I would ask for the clerk to repeat the amended motion as it stands, because I need a point of clarification.
Well,
or this, I don't care who reads it.
Well,
I think Mr. Levin has maybe the best grasp on it.
Yeah, it's two parts. It's to add, after release of the written minutes, also the verbatim audio recordings of closed session meetings. And secondly, that any council member who commented on any of the matters the AG office said were illegal now be deemed to have a conflict of interest and must be recused or barred from all hearings, discussions, or votes on this project. Continue.
Follow up. Thank you. Okay. As I stated, and as I in my letter to the city attorney and the city manager, I certainly support the immediate release of the audio recordings. I'm troubled by the last part of the motion, specifically because I've read this letter several times, and Ms. Levine states in her conclusion that the City Council improperly discussed topics that fall outside the scope of sections 2C5, 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, the City Council violated 2A, the Open Meetings Act, by closing these meetings to the public. At no point in any part of the Attorney General's office letter is there statement or of any individual alderman who may or may not have violated this issue. In fact, I read it as a statement that everybody who was in the meeting, regardless of comment made, is considered in violation of the act. I don't know how we separate that. So I can't support the last part of that, because I guess we would be then asking an additional attorney to further judge every comment made, when I don't believe that's what the opinion says. The opinion says that the meetings were in violation. I assume that means all attendees as stated. So by supporting this, I believe you actually have to exclude every alderman, clerk, mayor, anybody who was there. So I don't know how we can move forward with the project at all if we follow that last part of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go Alderman Plumsky and then Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the detailed account of what happened. It's very much appreciated. I would agree with the release of the meetings minutes and of the recordings. I'm uncertain of the third part as well, especially as everybody in the meeting heard the assurance from the city attorney that the conversation would be steered to a place where we were permitted to speak. So I think regardless of what was said, we were all talking and listening to what we thought was an appropriate conversation. Thank you.
Alderman Pezza?
I'd just like to make clear that once the tapes are heard, and I think when people listen to the tape, each individual alderman, and when you reference back to what the Attorney General says, where the violation came in, was speaking to these items outside of the scope. I think it's very clear. Some people spoke outside of the scope in reference to her particular sightings, and some did not. And it's also stated that, in fact, some city council members expressed concern that the city council didn't have sufficient information, and it also says some objected. So it's clear in the tapes against the opinion who said what, and if those items apply to the violations. So I'm not sure why everyone wouldn't be able to vote on this when only certain people made the comments that were referenced as unacceptable. Not everyone spoke to the comments that she references.
Instead of my speaking as Alderman, let me go to the others first. Alderman Bram, Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to this issue, and it is very serious, I don't think anybody up here intends or will hand-wave this issue at all. I have no problem myself releasing the minutes. I have no problem myself releasing the audio recordings. I have nothing to hide myself in regards to what I said or what I attempted to do on either of those two evenings. In regards to the third piece that Alderman Pezza made a motion to amend this current resolution, I do have some concern. I do agree with the opinion that was stated, and it does actually state, as Alderman Pezza read verbatim, that some aldermen were in violation. Specifically, my concern on this piece of the amendment would be who would be or how would we go about declaring what individual aldermen were in violation. The Attorney General didn't go to that extent, made a general comment. I don't know if we would go back to their office to have them make that ruling, if our own city attorney would make that ruling. I would beg to differ if anybody would suggest that any public official, elected official, would make that ruling. But procedurally, I see some flaws going in that direction. If the procedure itself is able to be ironed out, I actually have no problem with that amendment either, as long as it doesn't leave one individual standing, because then it really wouldn't be much representation here on this project whatsoever. So if Alderman Pezza would mind actually speaking to at least her thoughts on procedurally how we may or may not go about that, that might at least assist me in my decision on that final piece of this puzzle.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely support the immediate release of these recordings. I listened to the tapes from both meetings today because I, in fact, was not present at the September 17th meeting, and this was a real impetus for me to listen to what was said at that meeting and try to understand the enormity of this, because I think this is a very serious topic and that we need to take this very seriously, and it sounds like we are. I'm having some of the same concerns that Alderman Bram is having with the component of asking council members to not participate in future discussions, and part of that stems from my feeling that once these recordings are released, it will be very clear who was making comments in what areas of the discussion, and that it'll be public knowledge and it will be available to everyone to understand when the conversation strayed from what our city attorney said was clearly the narrow focus of what we were supposed to be talking about. And so while I completely appreciate the sentiment behind it, I think that once we have the audio in public so that everyone understands that although we were there to discuss price of property between us and the developer, that, you know, some of the comments strayed quite a bit from that. I'd like to get these audios released, and I'd like to make sure that we have no impediments to doing that. So I do think that it'll be very obvious who said what once the recording is out, and from that, it will be easy for the public to make their own judgments.
If I may speak as Alderman, and I will not pass the gavel unless it starts getting into debate, but I have no problem with releasing the audio tapes. I've listened to them, and as I say, my concern was whether a direct release today, next week, would interfere with our negotiation with the developers, and in my opinion, it would not. So I can support that part of your motion. The second part is very troubling to me. I think that if it's going to be very objective. Since I listened to the tapes yesterday, they're fresh in my mind. I do not know that, I think we'd have a council of about three or four who might still, who didn't make any comment at all. I doubt that it's legal to tell a duly elected alderman that you are going to bar him or her from participating and representing that alderman's ward in legal business of the city. I think, for me personally, it's even more troubling to me that we are continuing on. I can't tell you what happened before I came on the council. I have a high level of confidence that it wasn't anything that was improper, but I can tell you I know all of the aldermen. The implication that still seems to be going out is that there's a deal that's already done, and it's a secret to me if it is. I don't know how many stories we're going to have. If someone's got the envelope with the answer, I'd like to see it. It'd save me a lot of time. I don't know if the variations are going to be granted or not, or if the relief is going to be there. So it sort of implies, pardon me?
I was just going to raise a point of order that we should be speaking to the motion at the amendment at hand and not in regards to the overall proposal itself.
You put me in a difficult situation, Alderman Brand, because I'm the parliamentarian. Overruled.
That's why you're supposed to pass the gavel.
Maybe so. I do think it's relevant, though, because it goes to why we would be barring an alderman from participating, because somehow the process has been tainted. And I've seen no evidence that it has. I don't believe it has. I believe that what Alderman Pezza has brought to surface is a meaningful, important policy decision that means we need to be more diligent in enforcing Open Meetings Act matters. But I don't see the rest of it there, so I can't go for that last part. That's my piece, and Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Excellent discussion, excellent points, well taken. I would like to amend my motion to remove the second piece and just include that whatever the verbiage was for the
To release the audio?
audio.
All right.
I
Second will
Yes,
be-
I concur.
All right. All right, so as it would stand now is that we don't need anyone's permission.
I think you have to waive your rules because amending on the same night. So I think a simple motion by someone to amend.
Because she made a motion to amend the resolution, now she's changing her motion to amend.
No, I'm sorry. If you're just asking me about that, I think the seconder agreed to that.
All
So
right.
that parliamentary procedure is
it's fine.
appropriate. I was just simply saying that if you're going to move on the amendment and make a modification to the resolution, you have to waive your rules because you're amending the same night that you're passing, and that under Chapter 2 is not...
All right, Alderman Mulliner, who has a knowing look.
Yes, that's correct, and I would move to suspend the rules to allow us to amend this resolution.
Let's go with,
Isn't that only for ordinances?
No, this,
No,
an
it-
ordinance
it
or a
covers that.
resolution,
It
it's
even
both.
covers
You need a second?
We need a second for that.
I'll suspend the rules.
well, I'm not sure that's correct or not, but if we go through this, we'll know it's correct. So we're on a motion to suspend the rules. We'll clarify, purify, we'll make it good. So a motion to suspend the rules by Alderman Mulliner, second by Alderman York. Is there any discussion on suspending the rules? And I'll take a voice vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we're on to Alderman Pezza has asked to amend her motion to include after written minutes and verbatim audio recordings of closed session meetings, the meeting on September 10th and September 17th. Alderman Gutenkopf has seconded as amended. All right, any discussion on the audio recordings? Alderman Morley.
Yes, I just have one, point or comment, and I don't know how to address it. Would ask for the opinion of my fellow council members. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned in one of your speeches, and a couple of us have also mentioned, that there are members here who have not reviewed the audio. And I think it puts them in a little bit of a funny position. I personally have reviewed the audio, and certainly you can take my word on it, and the half a dozen other aldermen who have. I have no problem releasing the audio tape. My question is there any way to alleviate the funny position we're putting our fellow colleagues in who may want to, because I don't think anybody here, as you mentioned, as it relates to these meetings, I don't believe there was any ill intent in participation in these meetings. Is there any way to design this? I know that we have, we don't have the software right now to pull this off, to redact the appropriate parts of the audio. I'm just trying to figure out a way to allow for any of the other council members at least a little bit of time, whether it's a day or two, to look at these. Can that be part of, I don't know if we're writing up an ordinance on this or how that works, but I'm just trying to be a little sensitive to those aldermen who have not reviewed it. I fully support the release of these audios. I want to give my fellow aldermen that opportunity.
Well, I should point out that even if we vote tonight to release them, it'll take a day or two to do it, not to in any way impede the process. And I don't want to use the word redact, which has some legal meaning, because we're not cutting any part out of the topic that deals with Addison LLC. But on those nights, there were other portions that will not be released that might deal with other closed session topics. So it'll take a day or maybe two to just separate it, and I think we could make, simultaneously, we could send it to the alderman. I could have it emailed out, ask Clerk Spencer to coordinate that, so the alderman would know what's out there, so they'll know how to better respond to questions that arise without having to say, I haven't heard it yet, if that's what the Alderman would like.
You understand my concern?
I do. All right.
Take a vote.
All right, I think I get the feeling we're ready to vote on this one. Yeah, I'm going to ask for a voice vote on this. This is on the amendment to the resolution that Alderman Pezza has proffered.
Point of order, I'd like to request a roll call vote.
Did I say roll call? Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to say roll call. My part. Thank you, Alderman Bram. All right.
All right. Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner.
It's the right thing to do. Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, the amendment passes. We are now on the resolution as amended. Is there any discussion on the resolution? All right, I'll ask for a roll call on that, on the resolution itself.
Okay, Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, the ordinance passes. Thank you all for your consideration on that. One moment, please. Thank you. Other business? Oh, we got another ordinance.
we have an ordinance.
Oh, action-packed.
Ordinance.
All right. This is the ordinance from our previous report, Clerk Spencer, if you would read
An
the...
ordinance abating a portion of the general tax levy for the year 2012 of the city of Elmhurst, DuPage in Cook Counties, Illinois.
Thank you. Alderman York,
Oh, I was going to put it on the,
please. Motion.
yes, motion.
Second, Alderman Hipskin. And who's going to introduce? Alderman York?
There's really not a lot of introduction. I did want to just mention a couple things that I left out of in speaking about the report. Obviously, the ruling is only for the 2012 tax year, and we're still waiting on the 2011 determination on this particular matter. And as such, we do have the funds in the sum of just under $200,000 still in restricted funds. So those funds are available in the city treasury to pay any obligations back that's determined by the Department of Revenue when that determination is made.
To refund to the hospital.
Yes,
Right.
to refund to the hospital.
Very good.
That's right, yes.
Any discussion?
Further comment on that. This has been going on for 3 years now, and it's once again our finance department predicted very accurately what was going to happen, and it did. As one of the taxing bodies here in Elmhurst, I know that the procedure we used and followed really protected the citizens. And once again, I want to thank the Finance Committee for all their hard work and great foresight.
Thank you.
Finance Department, what'd I say, committee? Yeah.
All
And
right.
Department, Maryland, you know what I mean.
And the committee.
Any other discussion? Clerk Spencer, if you'd call the roll on the ordinance.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Now, other business? There being none. Before we adjourn, I think we'll take about a 5-minute break just so that we can shift into a committee of the whole mindset. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, with a motion, Alderman Gutenkopf with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.